I'd like to propose a question. What was the first adult-rated animated film? The glasses pushers in my audience amongst you will say 1972's Fritz the Cat. It was 4 things: perverted, provocative, protested, and immensely profitable. And being the first ever American animated X-rated film, it paved the way for adult animation to be taken more seriously. You could say that this is the first ancestor of the term adult animation. But you'd be wrong. So you know how Fritz the Cat had to add the distinction that it was specifically American animated? That's because 3 years ago in Japan, Osamu Tezuka struck the medium of adult animated feature films first. And boy, did that guy know how to stroke. My name is D Starlight, I'm 22 years old and the proud owner of the Pink Floyd album with tits on it, and welcome to Animerama. I'm sure you don't need an introduction to Osamu Tezuka, other than that 1, he made Astro Boy, 2, is considered the godfather of modern manga, and 3, kept drawings of anthropomorphic mouse women locked away in a drawer that was only discovered after his death. Based. He was an incredibly inspirational and quirky fellow that did a lot of avant-garde experimental stuff with the medium of anime and manga. And nowhere is that shown more than the subject of today's video, the Animerama trilogy. Animerama is a series of 3 movies produced... Did I just fucking hit my mic? Animerama is a series of 3 films produced by Tezuka's original production house, Yushi Productions, all in an attempt to show the world, once and for all, that animation could be so much more than just a medium for children. A stigma that he's had to fight off for literally his entire career. In order, we have 1001 Nights from 1969, Cleopatra from 1970, and Belladonna of Sadness from 1973. It is assumed all of them were financial failures in their day, especially the latter 2. Belladonna of Sadness was actually the final feature that Mushi Productions would produce before finally going financially belly up after years of trouble. And when you watch them, it quickly becomes relevant, at least on a surface level, as to why these films didn't do very well. These films are so fucking weird. They're artsy, they're abstract, they're experimental, they probably haven't aged the best in some regards. They somehow match my humor perfectly despite being older than my parents. They have tons of scenes with a completely unique style of animation compared to the rest of the film before moving on without a second thought. And that's just the things I can list before the sentence becomes a run-on. I absolutely adore these films for how bizarre and experimental they are. And while you could look at them as a desperate plea for Tezuka trying to make some cash on a whim by stooping to the adult/erotic crowd, basically what live-action films in Japan at the time with pink films were doing, to my eyes, these films represent the mind of a man with more fame than funds, trying to throw anything at the wall, seeing what sticks. And while he was never alive to truly see the residue left behind, the DNA of these films lives on into the modern day. While Fritz the Cat may be a better example of modern-day adult animation like Family Guy or some shit, the Animerama trilogy beats it to the punch by several years in its own unique style. And that's pretty important to highlight too. I mean, would we have the dark side of the moon without obscured by clouds? No, we probably fucking wouldn't. So today I'd like to dive into these 3 films. Their history, their plot, and occasionally I'll provide various moments from my own rewatch of them that I did for this video. It'll be fun, I promise. And if you do enjoy the video, make sure to subscribe for more dumb ideas such as this. God only knows if my next video will be shorter than 40 minutes after all. So buckle up, because it's time for our first film in the trilogy, 1969's 1001 Nights. Beating Fritz the Cat by about 3 years, our first entry in the Animerama trilogy stakes its claim as truly one of, if not the, first X-rated animated film to be aired in theaters. That being 1969's 1001 Nights. From the title alone, you can infer that this is some adaptation of the Arabian Night stories, which we Westerners know as Aladdin. Unlike the other 2 films we'll look at, 1000 Nights actually did perform moderately well within its home country, making about 290 million yen in the box office, or around $16 million, adjusted for inflation and converted today. But just like its sister films, it did horrendously outside of Japan. Despite being the longest film of the 3, this entire section for this movie is going to be a lot shorter than the rest, for reasons you'll see shortly. Now it's just like actual rotoscoping. Holy shit, okay. Give me more janky rotoscoping, please. I require it. Patient needs shitty rotoscoping to live. Oh my god, Femboy? Alden 2 is in this movie. Man, characters just appear and disappear from relevancy over and over again, don't they? The movie follows a guy named Aladdin who... Sorry. What? Wait, really? Oh shit, okay. My bad. Okay. The movie follows a fellow named Alden and his many misadventures while in Baghdad. And that's the plot! Main antagonist changes minute to minute. Side characters that are relevant changes minute to minute. Overarching themes changes minute to minute. Hell, I can't even call Alden himself a main character because there's like 10-15 minute chunks of this movie where bro isn't even involved. It's why I can't really give a proper plot summary here. The movie is nonsensical in a very different way from the other two films we'll be looking at. Whereas Cleopatra is bizarre for the sake of comedy, and Belladonna is bizarre for the sake of atmosphere and presentation, Alden doesn't really have the same justification. The unfortunate side effect of being the first in a trilogy. It really just feels like a typical animated film of the time, just with toplessness and the occasional sexual reference. And while I could give the play-by-play of each scene like I have done for the Lane video, for instance, it doesn't really make sense to do so here. You can surmise Alden plainly and bluntly in just one word. Filler. Every scene feels very loosely connected from each other. This movie has pacing that would make even my videos blush. You'd be like, oh, if you want the crown, dude, here, you can have it. I'm done. Yeah, I knew it. He's like, alright, I'm done. Okay, so when she thinks she has suicidal thoughts, that's a plot point. But when I do, I'm just told I'm mentally unstable and need to leave IHOP. Okay. Man, I'm just making whatever fucking commentary I want because this movie is boring as fuck. We go from Alden stealing a girl that was brought to be a slave within the chaos of a sandstorm, to being trapped in a house, to having Alden thrown in a dungeon, tortured and framed for a crime he didn't commit, to escaping, to flying a flying rocking horse, to finding an island of snakes that transform into hot women, based, complete with an actual honest-to-God transformation sequence, to meeting pirates, to finding a magical ship that grants wishes, to a 15-year time skip. And now we're at the halfway point of the movie. This movie is over 2 hours long. Do you really need me to continue the synopsis? No wonder the US dub cuts the movie down to 100 minutes. If this is the type of loose plot insanity that interests you in a film, go watch the rest of it. I've already said most of the really noteworthy stuff here, and I'm really glossing over this movie because it's nowhere near as interesting as the other two films we'll be talking about today. The fact of the matter is that, as expected for being the first in a trilogy, it isn't as good as what would come after. Watching this movie after knowing the other two movies that come after it, like, I can see the DNA. They have scenes of really experimental framing and presentation that Belladonna is known for, and there's hints of randomly modern thing in the wrong time period that Cleopatra uses for a lot of its best jokes. The problem with this movie is that it's boring, which is insane given the half plot recap I just gave. But when compared to its contemporaries, the main problem is that despite being really weird and borderline nonsensical, 1000 Nights doesn't go as far as it possibly could. 1001 Nights is what happens when an Animerama film decides to play it safe. So let's take a look at what happens when that isn't the case with our second movie on tap, 1970's Cleopatra. Trust me, this one is much more worth our time to look at. Oh god, where to even begin with this movie? I guess I could sum it up like I did with the last film. Cleopatra 1970 is batshit insane. That's not just me talking, even the guy who made the subtitles agrees. Cleopatra, to me, is the definitive Animerama film, as it has the best balance of all of Animerama's unique strengths. It has the bizarre, artsy, experimental scenes of Belladonna. It's got the signature style of humor that we only got a taste of in 1000 Nights, and yet it still has the plot, focus, and polish needed to make a genuinely great cult classic film. Plus, I can even surmise this film in a humorous manner. Are you ready? Of course you're not. Let's go! We start off in the far future. We're not even 10 minutes into the film, and we're already getting scenes experimenting with live action, practical effects, and rotoscoped animation at the same time. And it absolutely is visible to the naked eye. Look, this film is insanely experimental, But not every experiment's a winner, okay? We get the rundown from General What's-His-Face over here that alien forces are nearby Earth, and we're not entirely sure what they're up to, but a decoded transmission reveals the phrase Cleopatra plan. Humanity has absolutely no idea what that means, so the plan is for General What's-His-Face to send 3 humans, Jiro, Hall, and Maria, back to the time period of Cleopatra, inhabiting the bodies of period at the time period, to find out literally any direction as to what this phrase could mean. The majority of this film takes place in ancient Egypt, during the period where the Romans were attempting to take over Egypt. At the head of the assault is some guy named Julius Caesar. He's green because he may be placed here. The Egyptians have a plan to kill Caesar by... Oh god, am I allowed to say this on YouTube? Fuck it, I don't fear demonetization. By having a woman use her coochie to literally break Caesar's dick off. We are not even 20 minutes into the movie yet. When the Romans discover the resistance hideout, Cleopatra and 2 of her close handmaidens, Livia and Apollodoria, are able to escape. Everyone else, though, they're victims of one of the first super awesome scenes animation-wise. Like, dude, look at this shit! There will be many other scenes like this going forward, where the animators just decide to do something radically different art style and animation-wise just for the sake of one scene and just not even acknowledging it and going right back to where it was. And I adore it. Even when desperate for money, Tezuka cannot resist the urge to do weird artsy experimental shit as if it were the Green Goblin mask. Around this point, the 3 humans from the future arrive and start inhabiting the bodies of people from the time period who will assume control of them for the rest of the movie. It's kind of like a plurality situation. And okay, if I may go on an ad-libbed, completely unscripted tangent for a second, I kind of want to talk about this just for a little bit. This isn't in my script at all, I'm completely ad-libbing this, but in this movie, the way they do time travel is really interesting. What we in the modern day would call basically plurality is essentially how time travel is done. The way that it works is that our 3 fellas go back in time and basically possess the bodies of people that were alive at the time period. They're not fully in control of the body. They're just an extra personality that's talking to the person of the past and giving them ideas. That's the only way I've been able to actually understand the way that time travel works in this movie, and honestly, it's a really interesting way to do time travel that I've never really seen before. Maria now has the body of one of Cleopatra's handmaidens, Libya. Jiro has the body of a Greek slave named Ionius, who we'll be meeting rather shortly, and Hal, the one anticipating getting some action with Cleopatra, is sentenced to the worst kind of horny jail in existence, being a slapstick comic relief sidekick. For the sake of simplicity, I'll be referring to these characters by the names of the future people inhabiting them, rather than the actual names of the characters at the time. It'll make sense as we go on. Cleopatra goes through wacky Tezuka-fied plastic surgery to become as irresistible as possible, shoved into a bag, and dropped off to Caesar. She knows her mission: seduce, get sticky, and slay. 3-part plan, 20-minute adventure, in and out. But during the really abstractly animated Sex 1, Cleopatra starts to legitimately fall for Caesar. Uh-oh. You think most of the actual sex in this movie is really artistic, pretty to look at, and probably so fucking vague that it's unlikely to actually get me age restricted by the AI that controls YouTube now. Unfortunately, I'll still be censoring all of these movies just out of a precaution, so if you want the full experience of watching this video uncensored, and a week early, join the Ducky D Unemployment Fund with my Ko-Fi link in the description. Meanwhile, Jiro and Maria are somewhat reunited, though they aren't fully aware of each other's future selves. To escape a deadly situation, I shit you not, Jiro metagames hand grenades into existence. This is not the only time this will happen in this movie. The 2 are captured by Caesar, and Jiro is made into a soldier. And during this time, Jiro crafts a very special artifact that'll be a surprise tool that'll help us later. I could tell you what it is now, but I'll just leave you in suspense for approximately 1 paragraph. Cleopatra accompanies Caesar back to Rome. Cue another really weird artsy scene that definitely doesn't have a topless Mona Lisa in it that I'm conveniently not showing out of fear of age restriction. Caesar is challenging for control over the Roman Senate, and to show his might, he holds a fight in the Colosseum, that being the recently captured Jiro against the giant Ionius. What the fuck? In case you were wondering who made this. David defeats Goliath by using a fucking gun. Remember that artifact I mentioned in the last paragraph? Yeah, Jiro metagames again to craft a gun and 2-tap Ionius, winning Caesar the favor within the Senate he so desperately craved, for better and for worse. Time passes, Increasingly more bizarre and incorrectly timed statues involving Caesar are being constructed all over Rome. Caesar has a complete monopoly over senatorial power. Any law he makes gets passed no matter how stupid. And eventually the cohorts within the Senate have had enough of this tomfoolery. Combined with Cleopatra realizing that Caesar had cheated on her literally the entire time, Cleopatra's had enough of Caesar too. Now tell me, was Julius Caesar's assassination and betrayal portrayed via kabuki theater on your bingo card? Here it is! Cleopatra, 62.5% of the way through the movie, has finally gotten Caesar killed. Remember when that was the main plot thread? I don't. While the Egyptians rejoice that their land is still theirs for the time being, Cleopatra has a lot of mixed feelings. She's had them the entire time, and it raises one of my favorite points of the movie. Cleopatra's consent to being the sex object Egypt needs to remain free of Roman control is never fully stated. At the start, she's vocally into the idea, at least for the sake of getting the men on board with understanding the plan. But as soon as she gets her facelift, it quickly becomes apparent that she's been having second thoughts the whole time. She realizes that she's nothing more than artificial beauty bred of necessity, rather than of her own decisions. And knowing now that any lover she has is fated to end up dead by her own hands, she really doesn't know what to do about it. Thankfully, she doesn't have to remain in an existential crisis for long, as Egypt now has a new problem to take care of. That being Caesar's right-hand man, Antony. Cleo tries to rehash with Antony what she did for Caesar, but after Antony's defeat in the Battle of Actium, the revolving door spins yet again. For a third and final time, a new threat to Egypt appears with Octavian, the adopted son of Caesar. He's blue for an amazing reason. Not Caesar's actual son, because that'd be kind of weird, and also he's not relevant to the plot anymore, remember? Cleopatra and the gang flee the city of Egypt, to somewhere, anywhere across the desert. The fun gang stumbles upon an ancient pyramid housing what is supposedly a love hotel for the dead? It really isn't conveyed well in the anime at all, and I got this from liner notes of my physical copy, lol. Still, they entered a pharaoh's tomb, not realizing they just entered the last building they'll ever enter. When Octavian finally catches up to them, Cleopatra's luck finally runs out. The charms and the plan that got her to where she is won't work anymore. Octavian is a faggot. Told you he was blue for an amazing reason, and thirsts more over Jiro than Cleopatra. Realizing she's bound to die either way, Cleopatra decides to end her life by acute snake's poison. While she was forced into a fate out of her control, her death by her own hands is finally a choice that she gets to make for herself. The rest of the gang climb to the top of the pyramid and tell the Romans to fuck off in a really climactic final scene. Just kidding! Do I remember the actual overarching plot from like an hour and 50 minutes ago? We cut back to the future, where the gang have returned safely from their expedition and have relayed their findings to Captain What's-His-Face. Turns out, they finally understood what the Cleopatra plan meant from their adventure, which is fantastic because not even I can tell you. Turns out, the plan of the aliens was to marry human lookalikes to powerful political figures and control humanity from the inside out. Humanity's response, obviously, is to send a ton of nukes. And then the movie ends! Okay! There is so much more to this movie that I left out here just for the sake of time. There's so many scenes that appear and contribute absolutely nothing to the plot except as an excuse for a joke or a new art style choice. If there's any movie from these three that I would recommend you watch on your own, it's Cleopatra. It's so wonderfully weird, exotic, and nonsensical, but in such a way where it's still recommendable and watchable as a standard film without needing a college lecture of disclaimers. Unfortunately, it wasn't even remotely as successful as Thousand Nights, in and outside of its territory. And that all boils down to one pretty big problem both then and now. Sensationalism. Keep this note in your pocket, as it's a point I'm going to touch on more in the conclusion. Just note, despite sex actually being in the movie for maybe less than 10 minutes of the runtime, in the United States, the subtitle Queen of Sex was slapped onto the film for seemingly no reason other than marketing potential. After all, it debuted in American theaters a week after Fritz the Cat did. If anything, it probably hurt the film's chances of doing well, making it seem like a knockoff of Fritz the Cat, when if you know the full story, that couldn't possibly have been the case. And yet, despite its financial situation, here I am, stupid enough to have fallen head over heels in love with it, and now talking about it for your viewing pleasure. You can't say this isn't a peak cult classic film. It has all of the elements. financial failure, weird artsy shit, barely coherent plot, and just enough about it that's oddly ahead of its time to justify an autistic hyperfixation in anybody like me. I hope with all my rambling, you consider checking out Cleopatra. There definitely isn't a dull moment to be found, which oddly enough can also apply to our third and final lineup today, 1973's Belladonna of Sadness. You are not ready for the things that I have to show you. But first, a word. Actually 278 of them. Approximately. Enjoying the video so far? Well, videos like these aren't exactly easy to make. This video is being made alongside having a damn near 40-hour work week, man. That's why I'm very thankful for the many amazing members of my community, and especially the members of the Ducky D Unemployment Fund, the official Ko-Fi page for curiosities. Jesus, that's a mouthful. For your contribution of as little as $3 a month, you get access to uncensored videos like this one, early video and trailer access, access to special Discord channels, super secret live streams where I literally make videos live, an entire director's cut series exclusive to Ko-Fi, and probably more bullshit by the next time I upload a video. And there's the obligatory get your name in the credits for joining more like every YouTuber does too. I guess. Support from the Ko-Fi allows me to make videos free of such earthly restrictions as copyright and demonetization, and make my videos the way I want to make them, potentially even as a job in the future. If you're enjoying the videos, streams, anything I do, your contributions go a long way. I want to be able to keep doing YouTube videos, and I can't do it without the support of people like you. Thanks for not skipping the section with sponsor block, friend. I like to put a small bonus within my Ko-Fi ads for the people that actually watch this, so here you go. Did you know that in my backlog, I have over 30 ideas for videos that I'm at least somewhat confident in? Support me on Ko-Fi and help ensure those ideas see the light of day. Enough shilling, back to the video. Welcome to the endgame. This is what we've been building up to. Belladonna of Sadness is the only movie I've seen with the potential to dethrone Pink Floyd at Pompeii for my stoner movie of choice. It is a Brothers Grimm-esque fairy tale with a Japanese lens and an oil paint show overlaid on top of it. It's weird, it's psychedelic, and it's genuinely awesome. It's the result of a studio knowing that they're not long for this world and going out with a bang in the most indescribable way possible. And I cannot wait to talk about it in length. But before we begin, a couple of things we should probably get out of the way. Most notably, this is the only film of the three to not feature Tezuka in any production role. After the disaster of the prior two films in the trilogy, Tezuka had basically given up on the idea of Animerama, as he was focusing more on manga work at the time. And as such, the film is of a completely different tone than Thousand Nights and Cleopatra. Whereas those movies were fantasy comedy, Belladonna is strictly meant to be a fantasy drama. It sacrifices the humor in exchange for going all in on the presentation and the weirdness. You can decide for yourself if this was the move. Don't let the fact that this is the movie that bankrupted Mushi Productions to influence you in any way. It's also one of the most difficult movies to recommend for various reasons. While it is true that I'm about to gas this film up to no end, it's not for everyone. If you're not a fan of flashing lights, vivid portrayals of oppression and sexual control, scenes that I can only describe as abstract bisexual hair orgies, and generally want a movie that makes sense, this may be a film you'd skip out on watching on your own. And I don't blame you. If I wasn't super autistic, I probably wouldn't watch this again. For everyone else, take your psychedelic of choice and join me in this barely comprehensible journey. In medieval times, the film opens with our two main characters, John and John, on their wedding day. Their names are literally phonetically identical, so I'll be referring to the woman, Jean, as Jane for this recap. Just because she's the main character and I'll be saying her name a lot. So just to differentiate. Once wedding day turns to wedding night, we see the true state of the world they live in. In order to gain the right to marry, Jane is, offered to the Lord and all the men in the kingdom, since the two of them are too poor to pay the fines necessary for such the privilege of getting married, I guess. We are not even 10 minutes into the movie, by the way. Jean says that the two can live a good life starting now, forgetting the past, before he chokes her out and runs out of their house. Really great guy. It's at this point that Jane is visited by her personal vengeance demon, henceforth referred to as the PVD, for the first time, offering her exactly what she needs. Power. The more the movie goes, the more Jane forgoes her humanity to get any source of justice to her life, and this is her first offering. Donning a green dress and some semblance of what me in the modern day would call aura, Jane starts making bank off of her threads, enough for her and Jean to be the only one to pay the exorbitant taxes to the Lord to fund the war efforts. Jean even becomes a tax collector for a time. Glad to see how well that works out for him for like 15 minutes until the town is so poor, Jean can't actually collect taxes anymore, and the Lord takes it out on him by cutting off his right hand. From this point on, Jean becomes drunk, depressed, and overall barely plot relevant, as a nice callback to 90% of the characters from Thousand Nights. Around this time, Jane is visited by her PVD for the second time, who with Jane's misery and desperation for power, continues to grow in size, this time taking Jane's body, in exactly the way you're thinking of. This gives her another shot of good luck and fortune, but as the Lord starts to notice and become jealous of Jane's power and fame, he sicks the villagers against Jane, for the crime of, you guessed it, witchcraft. I mean, he's not wrong, right? However, the Lord's religious advisor, who looks oddly like Jesus Christ, gives a warning. If the Lord's temper gets to him, and he burns Jane at the stake while the devil is still within her, her soul will escape and simply find a new body within the villagers, causing mass chaos and uprising. This is enough to make the Lord relent on going guns blazing, in the medieval sense. For now, at least. Jane tries to run back home, to Jean, the man she's wanted to protect this whole time. And he bars against the door so she can't get in. What a great guy. Straight couples, am I right? So, with nowhere else left to turn, she does what most people my age would imagine doing at this point, completely rejecting human society and running into the woods. After running for ages, she finally collapses onto the ground and meets her PVD for the third and final time, revealing himself to have been Satan the whole time! Whoa! Who could have seen that coming? At her point of total desperation, Jane finally gives her soul to the devil, to do, in her own words,
悪いことがしたいわ。何？悪いことなら何でも。
The human known as Jane technically no longer exists, now being fully transformed into a witch. Not the one you're thinking of. Not that one either, but knowing my channel, that's a pretty good guess. As Satan says himself, who says anger and hatred are ugly, Jane truly has become the Belladonna of Sadness. Roll credits. With her newfound powers, Jane does do something. She does something really, really bad. She spawns the Black Plague. Anything I'm showing you here interests you, please watch this movie. The movie is this cool the entire way through, I promise. This movie is fucking awesome. When Jane returns to the village, she finds that the Black Plague has absolutely decimated the place. But with her newfound powers and the help from the Belladonna flower, she can cure the Black Plague. She can actually do a lot more than that with her new powers. Enough to get the villagers left alive to come with her and be a hippie cult in the woods. She's literally me. She can cure the Black Plague, teach people about anal, and have really weird hair orgies. Don't believe me? Watch it yourself, because there's no way I'm showing this on YouTube. Or watch the Kofi uncensored cut. I guess that works too. Wait, fuck, I should have started with that. Wait, no, read. At this point, the Lord is getting absolutely furious with what's going on. He's getting jealous he didn't get invited to the hair orgies. Probably. He starts to formulate a plan to get the witch out of the picture, and him back in the spotlight. One of his lackeys, a page who's secretly in love with the Lord's wife, ooh la la, suggests waiting for a weakness. This is bullshit, because it actually just gives him time to visit Jane and ask for help to make the Lord's wife fall for him via a love potion. Jane's like, I bet, and decides to help. Turns out, it works. Maybe a little too well, because by morning, the two are skewered in the hallway. Oh, you thought that line was innuendo? No, I was talking about the sword. Gotcha. At this point, enough is enough for the Lord, so he sends out Jean to go and get Jane. He wants her to come to the castle for a meeting, to attempt to settle this dilemma as peacefully and with him still in power as possible. Despite Jean being a worthless piece of shit for almost the entire movie, his presence is somehow enough to make Jane not want to be a forest hippie cult queen, and actually comes with Jean back to the castle. I would have used my powers for good. He offers to make her second in command to his entire empire, but Jane has other plans. Puts on her best Miku impression and demands,
Lord, and mine.
That's enough for the Lord to immediately screams for her to be burned at the stake. When Jean actually develops a conscience and tries to retaliate and do literally anything plot relevant for this entire movie, he's immediately killed. Just like that. This angers all of the villagers, so they take up arms, and then they're immediately stopped by the army of soldiers. I mean, they have pointy sticks. You can't really compete with that. Unfortunately, there's not much anyone can do except watching the burning take place. And turns out the Lord might have wanted to listen to Jesus after all. As Jane burns, all the villagers' faces turn to copy her expression. Jane's spirit, her desire to give literally anything, body, soul, life, whatever, for the chance of a better world, now burns within all the villagers. And while you probably expected this film to end in pure bloodshed as the villagers and the Lord's armies fight, it doesn't. The film ends with the implication that Jean's spirit persists within all of the townsfolk, passed down for generations and generations, and eventually being the spark for the women to lead the French Revolution, drawing the film to a close. You need a breather? I don't blame you. Even just looking at the plot, it's indescribable. But adding in the absolutely insane visual presentation, and the fact that I was on substances while watching this, and it's a miracle I even made it out the other side alive. Belladonna of Sadness is truly a one-of-a-kind film, stretching the limits of what animation can even be. I mean, for fuck's sakes, most of the movie is barely even animation. A lot of it is just watercolor paintings zoomed in and scrolled with occasional snippets of actual animated footage. Belladonna of Sadness is the drug trip fever dream of a studio, knowing it was going to go tits up and wanted to go out swinging. The result is a movie that truly feels like a piece of art more than any movie I've ever seen. And while I may not be able to recommend it to 90% of people, it's surely a film that I plan to revisit time and time again. And that's Animerama. Overall, these films give a really interesting look into the baby steps of modern adult animation in 3 very different ways. Belladonna focuses on abstract visuals and themes, Cleopatra focuses on humor, and Thousand Nights focuses on trying to play it safe enough for a movie like this to even be profitable in the first place. At least I think. The movie's mid as fuck, so I'm kind of stretching here, just work with me. All of these films put together form the start of modern day adult animation in one of the most unique ways possible. I'm a big fan of looking at media that, for one reason or another, would be scorned, or even worse, ignored by the rest of the world. And these movies, when they were originally released, were treated very harshly. But unlike Fritz the Cat, which faced the same level of, if not probably more, pushback and attention from the general public and religious movements, it seemed like the Animerama trilogy was almost destined to fail. With the exception of Thousand Nights within Japan, all of these movies failed to make a splash, especially internationally. I believe that these movies floundered worldwide because the marketing focused entirely on the X or unrated rating these movies received, implying them to be strictly pornographic, when in actuality, that couldn't be further from the truth. Even today, I'd imagine people are making videos with clickbait titles implying these movies are so much raunchier than they actually are. I mean, who would even do such a thing? All for just a few extra clicks? Have they no shame? Just like how Hard-Coded is very much a game with adult content in it, rather than an adult game, these movies are movies with sex in them, not sex movies. And the marketing being incredibly misleading about this led to middling critical scores, scorn from the public, and lackluster ticket sales. Hell, Thousand Nights even got a US dub that, due to the movie's failure, was never put into a home release, and until 2020 was lost media. That's how poorly these movies did. I believe there is no reason that some piece of media should be discredited on account of having adult content alone. And me even covering Animerama is a great example of this. When these movies came out, it felt like everything was against them. But now, in 2026, these films have finally developed the cult following that they deserved from the beginning. And I hope that with this video, I've created a couple more converts. Thanks for watching, friend. I'll see you next time.